Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have plans this evening? You okay?
Who are you?
A friend.
Thank you for believing in me.
Listen, there's something I have to do. I'll see you later.
Benny Johnson here on Will Kane Country. What's up, Benny?
What up, Will? Yo.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, no
no
pearl necklaces here, no puka shell necklaces. Tim Miller was the communication director for Jeb Bush when he was running for president in 2016. Do you know that? So you probably know him from that campaign. Just a reminder of what the Bush family was trying to put inside of the White House. Everybody who worked for the Bushes now works for MSNBC. So just a reminder of exactly what that was. I think that actually becoming politically awake is realizing that George W. Bush and Michelle Obama are like part of the same party, and they like share the same staff, and those people think the same way. And also Tim Miller is also in the Guinness Book of World Records, I think, fighting Harry Sisson for the lowest testosterone level ever known to mankind.
I think that's probably scientifically provable. He also writes for The Bulwark, which is one of these Project Lincoln type publications that does nothing more than echo the left's talking points under the flag of coming from the right. And largely, I'm uninterested in the musings of Tim Miller. But do you think the right, to my producer Dan's point, is generalizing the rhetoric, generalizing the accusations after the murder of Charlie, and quite honestly, a continuation of that with what we saw yesterday in Dallas, to indict too big of a scope, too broad of a swath of the left?
No. And I don't understand how anyone could possibly make that rationale. I mean, this is, again, the same party that tried to criminalize MAGA because a couple of grannies waved 25-cent Walmart flags as they looked at the Capitol on January 6th. I mean, like the way that they went ruthlessly after people that weren't even there on January 6th, the way that they threw that net and cast that net. I mean, they went after Donald Trump for incitement when Trump said march peacefully. And it's just like, and now they're going to sit there and say, well, the times when we actually incited violence. Here's a good example. And I actually looked this up. So President Trump eats a bullet, Will. He ate a bullet in Butler. And it was less than a week before an MSNBC pundit was saying it's time for us to put a target on Donald Trump. Back, live, on air. And what you'll constantly find between, as a difference between the left and the right, is that we don't allow that kind of rhetoric. Not only that, we don't allow violence at all. And we kick that out of our party. We disavow it. Whereas the left not only covers it up, in the case of Jimmy Kimmel, but then says to other left-wingers that want to target Trump supporters, we'll cover for you. In fact, we'll blame MAGA for your crimes. So you can get a twofer here. This is why it is so despicable and morally unforgivable what Jimmy Kimmel did. And I have something else for you, Will. You know, I come prepared in these kind of situations. Here is something I call the handy-dandy printer paper that I have created a chart. What is this chart from? It is from the DOJ's own data in the year 2023. This is Biden administration data, and this is crime committed by registered Democrats versus crime committed by registered Republicans. As you can see here in the data, Will, there's quite a difference in the parties. This difference is also demonstrated in a voluminous number of polls that show that the Democrat Party, especially younger left-wingers, see political violence as a means to an end and a political tool. This is something that was obviously espoused from the House floor when 58 Democrats refused to disavow violence this past week. And in the aftermath of the murder of Charlie Kirk, the political assassination of Charlie Kirk, the ICE shooting yesterday, and the transgender slaughter of Catholic school children praying, the response to the left, Will, has not been quiet reflection and prayerful consideration of how they could do better, but instead victim blaming, like Tim Miller just did, and then also more terrorism. They planted bombs on a Fox News local affiliate van. They've shot up an ABC news station. Left-wingers have desecrated Charlie Kirk memorials. There's like a dozen assault charges for left-wingers who have attacked Charlie Kirk mourners. Tens of thousands of leftists have celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder online. And, of course, you had Predator George Zinn, who miraculously was standing there when Charlie Kirk was shot, put his arms in the air, and said, it was me, allowing for the actual shooter to get away. And I still have no, like, proper explanation for why he did that. He's in custody right now. They found a bunch of Predator material on his phone. That's why I call him that. You can go look it up. And that has been the response from the left. And so, yes, we have a major problem with left-wing terrorism in this nation. And yes, it is organized and centrally funded. And yes, as we just heard on my program a second ago of Trish McLaughlin from DHS, that this was a copycat of Charlie Kirk. And so this is the sum of all fears, Will, is that there's going to be copycats. The guy that shot up the ICE agency was searching for the Charlie Kirk shot, was searching for how the gunman did it. These were some of the searches leading up to his attack on the ICE facility, doing the same thing, carving left-wing iconography on his bullets and so on. It's a huge problem. And the final thing I'll say here is you can't unite with people. We want unity. Yeah, me too. Okay? Like, yes, I want like the old-fashioned America, where we just kind of like politely disagree. But you can't unify with people who want you dead. You can't live with people who want you dead. It's not going to end well. And you can't unify over a lie. And the biggest lie right now on the left is both sidesism. The biggest lie on the left is, there's also right-wing violence. Oh, yeah, where? You were just making this point, and you make a great point. Like, okay, show me. And they can't. And so they won't own the violence on their own side. Well, there can be no unity over a lie. You can't unify with evil. You can't embrace evil. You must destroy it.
So I want to dig into the word that you used and Tim Miller used, and that is the word they. That is the word that is causing what is left of the sane elements of the left to recoil. I don't think that's a problem for you, Benny. I don't think that's a problem for me. I think that's a problem within their tent. They need to begin to define their they, because there is a real problem, and you've given wonderful argument to that problem. You reference the polling, Benny. You can take a look at this from YouGov that shows most Americans say it's unacceptable to be happy about public figures' deaths, but younger and more liberal Americans are more likely to call it acceptable. On political ideology, very liberal people, 24% suggest it's always or usually acceptable to be happy about a public figure's death. Another 20% aren't sure, making that 44% can't condemn the idea that you're happy or celebrate the death of a public figure. If you look at the conservative or the very conservative side of that, it is 7%, less than 7%. It's about 3% that say it's acceptable, and another 7% say they're not sure. The problem is exactly as you've stated, Benny, that we have the language and the rhetoric of the Democrat politicians. That's documentable, and it is right there written on the bullets of several assassins. We have, unfortunately, even I think almost more unfortunately, the celebration videos of what turns out to be our teachers and our neighbors. And they are part of the they. And we also have these people right here registering in these polls who have seemed to embrace this moment in America and this concept of violence. And for my producer, Two-A-Days Dan and his friends, or Tim Miller for that fact, if you don't consider yourself part of these groups, you have to police your side because you are losing it to your side. The they is your friend, Tim. The they seems to be, and we'll come back to him in a moment, it seems to be some of your friends, Two-A-Days. That's to you, Benny.
I'm telling you, dude, the fact that they can't, the fact that they don't police their own side, the fact that they don't, like, on the left, go through and disavow this stuff, and that they don't say, like, when Jimmy Kimmel goes on and says, hey, it was a MAGA shooter that killed Charlie. And, by the way, Charlie Kirk was the generational face of MAGA. And, therefore, Charlie Kirk deserved it, is what Jimmy Kimmel is implying, right, when he says something like that. That's going to lead, and then we said it the moment, this is why I went so hard at Jimmy Kimmel over the last couple days, is that that's going to lead to copycats, because what Jimmy Kimmel is saying is, with the full FCC licensure that I get, taxpayer-funded royalties and privileges that I get, I'm going to use this massive platform and government resources and infrastructure in order to broadcast this lie into your homes. And what that lie does is signal to other left-wingers that you can just go out and you can hunt Trump supporters and I'll cover for you. And then, lo and behold, it is precisely what we are seeing happening over the last 24 hours. You are seeing blue anon leftists go on social media, Will, and say, yo, this looks like a conspiracy theory. I'm sure that ICE just got a ballpoint pen and wrote anti-ICE messaging on the bullet casings. I'm sure they changed his Facebook profile photo. You know, he's a Facebook profile photo of a communist, right? And a hammer and sickle is his Facebook profile photo. Kash Patel just released the information that he was, again, trying to copycat. And how do you get that? How do you get those kind of copycats? You don't have any mechanism on the left, or you have no willingness on the left to actually call out evil on their own side. Meanwhile, on the right, this is a constant vigilance. I don't know a single person, I use this example, I don't know a single person who, let's talk about somebody who is despised by the right, that has a big name ID, maybe as big as Charlie Kirk's, and that would be Joe Biden. Joe Biden got terminal cancer diagnosis, stage 5, metastasized to his bone. That's a death sentence, according to all available, physicians' assessments of cancer. I mean, it's a very bad cancer diagnosis. No one celebrated, Will. Nobody cheered that on. No one, as far as I know, and every other influencer and every other person was like, yo, I really hope that, like, Joe Biden, I hope that he, like, lives out his days for whatever days that God has numbered for him. We hope the best for him. We're going to say a prayer for him. That's what we did. That's how we treated Joe Biden. Something bad happening to Joe Biden. I got another, little anecdote, and it's the last one I'll leave with you. So I was backstage at Charlie's memorial. I was chatting it up with some Secret Service agents. Some homies that I know in Secret Service, they're good dudes. And some guys from the FBI. And they had been there day and night for the last week at the arena. And they've been doing all the security protocols. What they told me is they had higher security protocols than the Super Bowl for that event. There's more people at that event than go to the Super Bowl, actually. There's close to 300,000 people that were physically there in the location, according to geo-tracking. Well, here's what they told me, Will. They said that in all of their spec ops for the Charlie Kirk Memorial, that not once did the proposition of right-wing violence come up in their assessment. Their major security assessments was that someone of the left would sneak in and commit a terrorist act. Now you have 300,000 mourners who just lost a generational hero and a future president that are there on site, and there's not a single instance of jaywalking. Nobody even spat gum on the sidewalk. There's no burning cop cars. There's no burning buildings. There's no attacks. There's no fights. There's no fist thrown. That's like that's the difference between the Charlie Kirk revival and the George Floyd riots. You can see it as clear as day.
No, it's stark. I remember reading the story about Charlie and Ben Shapiro having dinner together, talking about, because their security details were around them, whether or not all of it was necessary and that it felt like overkill. Despite the fact that I'm sure they're both very well aware of specific threats coming their way. The world has changed. Not to ever suggest I'm on the same level or face the same kind of threats. My world's changed. I'm sure yours has, and Benny, and not by my own choosing. There's more security around me. And I find myself having the same conversations that apparently were had between Charlie and Ben. Is this really necessary? But as incidences add up, the answer comes back as maybe. Maybe it is necessary. I don't know. Tim Pool said this recently. He said, there's a reason you feel that way, Will. There's a reason that you could feel that way, Benny. Here's Tim Pool.
What made the difference that brought his show back? Well, this is a little bit of speculation, but there was a terror attack on an ABC affiliate in Sacramento by what is reported to be a Democrat who opened fire on the building. And it's been reported by the New York Post that Sinclair pulled their Charlie Kirk memorial because of terroristic threats against ABC affiliates. So I agree with you. It's open season on people who are standing up, speaking out, or supporting Trump. But the left is also attacking regular people to force their will. And I think it's because they recognized Donald Trump won the popular vote. Normal people have spoken, and they're not tolerating their strange policies that are destroying this country anymore.
You know what's interesting, Benny? I gave a talk last night at an event, and the subject came up of a new video that's been aired by with Charlie. And Charlie Kirk was talking about the concept of offense and that we need to go on offense. It's interesting. What does that mean, to go on offense? Conservatism, you and I have been around for quite some time. We've known each other, I think, over a decade. And conservatism, by its very nature, has been defensive. It's been defined by William F. Buckley at National Review to stand athwart history yelling, stop. But it has to go on offense. The question is, how do you go on offense in a way where you don't become the left, you don't stoop to their extra constitutional or low bars, and still continue to win over America? And I think Charlie was the great exemplar of that, of how you do that, of how you go on offense and win people over. But I think that's the great debate moving forward. Because, by the way, what I think you're seeing, Benny, this entire thing, all the litany that Tim Pool listed off and that you did as well, I actually think they are the actions of a dangerous animal wounded, backed into a corner. They're the actions of a side that is losing cultural relevance, losing the ability to speak to the American people, lost the rhetorical debate, and what they have left is this. But winning doesn't last forever. Every side thinks they're going to win forever. So the question is, how do you go on offense in a way that maintains winning?
Yeah, but winning does go in cycles, and cultural changes are generational. And so what I think we are seeing right now is the death spiral, metaphorically speaking, of what happened in the 1960s and the communist revolutions of the 1960s. And that people are wholesale rejecting those and are actually returning, quite frankly, to the politics and some of the social and economic policies of their grandparents, and recognizing that actually it was your grandparents, your great-grandparents that kind of had things figured out, and that this is like a better way of life. And Charlie was an evangelist for that. Charlie was an evangelist to me as an individual. He obviously Christ-centered my life and was there as a friend to me in too many circumstances to actually enumerate. But let me tell you about one in particular. It was after the 2020 election, and it was deeply depressing and demoralizing for people of the right and for Trump supporters. And obviously, there was bombshell after bombshell and bad event after bad event, and it just felt crushing at the time. And Charlie said, I was like back in the Phoenix headquarters of Turning Point USA, and Charlie looks me directly in the eye, and he could see I was kind of like feeling the weight of it, and he goes, "Nope, not our time to cry. We are going to go 50 times harder." And that is precisely what Charlie did. Charlie, just like you never saw that man down, he just went 50 times harder. In the context of the video that you are referencing, Will, is Charlie in Nebraska. Do you know the background of Charlie and that conversation about offense? Because Charlie's in Nebraska trying to create enough public support for the dark red supermajority Republican state of Nebraska to have the balls to go out and to get rid of their what's it called, bicameral Democrats get one electoral vote from Nebraska. Charlie, just like on the off sort of research hand, realized that Nebraska was giving up an electoral vote to Democrats, and that there's some math that electoral vote could have handed Kamala Harris the presidency. And so Charlie just went full in and went hard in Nebraska and did huge events in Omaha, worked with the governor, and I think that maybe perhaps down the line they may be changing that. Now you're watching mid-year, mid-cycle redistricting happening all across the country. I think in part because of Charlie going on offense. Those who knew Charlie the best knew that he loved cultural victories. He loved when we were able to actually exercise and wield power, because we live in a center-right country, Will. We live in a country where 90% of the counties went Trump. Trump wins the popular vote in this country. Trump won 7 out of 7 swing states. But where is our representation in the media? Where is our representation in entertainment? Where is our representation in culture? Is culture center-right? Is Hollywood center-right? Is media center-right? Of course not. So there's a misalignment there. And Charlie wanted us to realign the country based on what our nation actually represents. That's why he would have loved this Jimmy Kimmel battle. The reason why they're so scared of it was because we reached up into the diseased temple of modern day Hollywood. And we were able to actually affect one of their high priests in that temple. And we were able to have some accountability for like the first time in my lifetime. And that's because of something very critical, Will. The left has lost. They have lost their cultural authority. They have lost their institutional authority and power. And they have lost their regulatory power. And those are the three things. All of them prop each other up. Andrew Breitbart said that politics is downstream of culture. All of those three things prop up their culture. And without them, they cannot enforce any of their hedonistic policies, pagan policies on the rest of us. And so this is an opportunity to use that, to wield that power. President Trump, of course, the master of it. And Charlie smiling down from heaven when it comes to these kind of cultural battles. If you will, just allow me to present to you, Will, something special. I have a big announcement for your show. In the vein and in honor of Charlie Kirk, we are going to fight cultural battles, and we are going to win them in an arena that Charlie loved so very much, college football. I know this is a sports show as well, and I know that you've had a long and wonderful history on ESPN, and I know that you're a big sports guy, so you're going to love this. And we're breaking news here. Turning Point USA, at the game of the week, Penn State versus the Oregon Ducks. This is going to be a massive game. This is a game that Charlie Kirk was going to attend. Charlie Kirk loves Oregon, but he also has a bunch of fans at Penn State and has done huge events there. We're going to be handing out, Turning Point USA is going to be handing out 5,000 Charlie Kirk Freedom shirts at that game. It's going to be a whiteout game at State College, so it's going to look great in the stands. And we want the entire stands. There's 100,000 people in that bowl, so, you know, it's going to be a fraction of them. But we want the student section to be popping with Charlie Kirk Freedom shirts for the whiteout at Penn State this weekend. This happens on Saturday. There's going to be a Turning Point table, and we're going to hope to do Charlie proud by fighting those cultural battles.
I hope you have that table well manned, Benny, because you're going to have a big line for those 5,000 shirts. You may be handing them out one at a time. You may have a T-shirt gun. You may need a T-shirt gun, because my suspicion is you're going to have a big line for those T-shirts. My only regret is that it wasn't a whiteout game, so that your white Freedom shirts don't blend into the rest of the white-shirted crowd. I want you to stand out like a beacon in that stadium, so much so that the announcers have to address why there are 5,000 people in a white T-shirt. But you might be able to accomplish that even though everybody is wearing white. That's an awesome thing. Benny, you knew Charlie really well. Any idea, and I've been curious about this, why an Oregon Ducks fan? Why was he so big on Oregon?
I think the lore is that he went there for a semester and that he attended.
He went there is that where he went for one semester?
Yeah.
I thought he went somewhere in
Utah.
Okay. Oregon for one semester. There's
no
picture.
Yeah, he had a fanatical
picture,
love
Charlie.
of Oregon. Yeah. He had a
And I don't
fanatical love
begrudge
of
Charlie
Oregon.
of that, you know.
Yeah, and I think that Oregon, to their great credit, is going to be doing a memorial Charlie Kirk seat that will sit empty in their stadium for like forever, in honor of Charlie and as his love of the football team and program there.
Oh, I really love the football coach, Dan Lanning, who has, I think, said some really kind words about Charlie in the wake of his assassination, which is the type of cultural bravery you're talking about. We want to see more and more cultural bravery from the people who share our values. We want, as Wade Stotts told us a little bit earlier this week, we want Pink to feel like she is actually in the minority, which she is, and to feel afraid to post the type of things that she's posting. And we want Chris Pratt, brave, to stand out there strongly and show who he is and the values that he shares. And that's the cultural battle I look forward to seeing you fight starting this weekend at State College for Oregon, Penn State. And I appreciate you making that announcement here with us today, Benny. I got one of those shirts, by the way, on order on the way. And so we're looking 5,000 students.
That's
Freedom
right.
Shirts.
That's right. It's college
Always
game
appreciate
day.
you.
Yep. College game day. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be amazing. And there's going to be a lot of love for Charlie, I know, in that beautiful state.
Awesome. The host of The Benny Show, Benny Johnson. Man, thank you for your time and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Will.